Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, and the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs, I welcome you to the 21st Pearl Harbor Remembrance Ceremony. My name's Gwen Diehl from the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs. I retired from the Army as a Sergeant First Class, and I'm your Master of Ceremonies today. We've gathered here today to remember those men and women who were killed at Pearl Harbor on the morning of December 7th, 1941, when America was attacked without warning by the air and naval forces of Imperial Japan. I've told you the story of my father-in-law, Don Diehl Sr., in the past. He was a radioman. He wasn't at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, but was on the USS Enterprise about 500 miles from Hawaii. The Enterprise had been scheduled to be at Pearl Harbor that day, but were delayed due to a storm. He heard the radio traffic of the attack in his radio room and could do nothing. He listened as planes from the Enterprise dispatched to help Pearl Harbor were shot down by friendly fire. He continued to hear these things in his head until his dying days, but could not speak of them. On this 81st anniversary, we honor the memories of the survivors of the attack on Pearl Harbor, paying tribute to the brave men and women who lost their lives that tragic day, and remembering those who have left our ranks in these years since the attack. It's now my pleasure to invite Cadet Lopez with Lincoln's Challenge to the podium to lead the narration of the Missing Man and Honors Ceremony.
As you enter the room, you may have noticed a small table in a place of honor. It is set for 5. This table is our way of symbolizing the fact that members of our profession of arms are missing from our midst. They are commonly called POWs or MIAs. We call them comrades. They are unable to be with us this evening, and so we remember them. This table is set for 1 is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his oppressors. Remember. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. Remember, the single red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who kept the faith awaiting their return. Remember, the red ribbon tied so prominently on the vase is reminiscent of the red ribbon worn upon the lapels and breasts of thousands who bear witness to their unyielding determination to demand a proper accounting of our missing. Remember, the candle is lit, symbolizing the upward reach of their unconquerable spirit. Remember, a slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of their bitter fate. Remember, there is a salt upon the bread plate, symbolic of the family's tears as they wait. Remember, the glass is inverted, they cannot toast with us this night. Remember, the chair is empty, they are not there. Remember, all of you who have served with them and called them comrades, who depended upon their might and aid, and relied upon them, for surely they have not forsaken you. Remember until the day they come home. Remember. L'avant-garde, present arms.
Thank you, Michele. Please be seated. We're very fortunate to have the use of this wonderful Elks Lodge here on the shore of Lake Springfield. Please welcome Bobby Edwards. Bobby was career military, honorably discharged from the United States Army and Army National Guard for over 36 years, retiring as a W-5. More recently, he served as the Elks Past Exalted Ruler and Elks Veterans Chairman, as well as currently being the commander of the Department of Illinois Veterans of Foreign Wars. His dedicated involvement with these organizations goes above and beyond every day. Please welcome Commander Bobby Edwards.
Greetings, fellow comrades, family members of the fallen. Today we recall an event that changed the course of history and the destiny of civilization. More than 80 years ago, the attack on Pearl Harbor awoke a sleeping giant, and with it produced what has been called the greatest generation. That day in infantry produced many U.S. casualties, 3,500 dead or wounded, 18 ships sunk or damaged, and more than 350 aircraft destroyed. Although it was a day of great tragedy, it also is a day that served to reignite our national pride and our great national spirit. We recall the events on December 7th, 1941, but more importantly, we remember the thousands of soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen who died during the terrible ambush and in the years that followed. Franklin D. Roosevelt spoke with poetic words when he stated, "No matter how long it may take us to overcome the premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through absolute victory. With the abiding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God." America was strengthened by its enduring values of freedom, tolerance, and service. The long odds that we faced during the dark days that followed the attack on Pearl Harbor served to fuel the indomitable spirit of our nation and carry us through the ultimate victory against the Axis powers. The attack on Pearl Harbor taught us that we need to be ever vigilant against enemies of all way of life. It taught us the necessary and maintaining a strong national defense and a well-trained and well-equipped military and able to hinder the efforts of freedom-hating tyrants. The lessons learned from the attack on Pearl Harbor have kept our nation safe and secure. But we have learned on September 11th, 2001, that we must never let our guard down. That because we enjoy the abundance of freedom, we are not exempt from danger. The attacks that occurred on December 7th, 1941, and September 11th, 2001, prove one thing. Our people may be killed, our buildings destroyed, but our enemies will never be successful in destroying our democracy or the American way of life. Many of the survivors of the attack on Pearl Harbor are no longer with us. Many of them went on to serve in other places. Some became casualties of our battles. A good many returned home to their families and friends and quietly resumed their lives as a civilian. Their contributions and sacrifice, steadfast devotion of duty, God and country, and to their families, provide us with the examples we need to emulate every day of our lives. We remain inspired by the diligence and their perseverance, and today we are strengthened by the memory of their actions. So let us here equally resolved in our determination to serve our nation as well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today as we recognize the ones that are no longer here with us that led this great nation forward to what it is today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. As we settle in for this special remembrance ceremony, I would like to open the floor to Mayor Jim Langfelder. Jim Langfelder has served Springfield since 2015. And his father, Ozzie Langfelder, served as Capitol Mayor for 8 years from 1987 to 1995. His son now carries that honor. Please welcome the Mayor of Springfield, Jim Langfelder.
Thank you, Gwen, for remembering my father. Thank you, Bobby Edwards and the Elks. They're important in all our lives and what they do for our veterans and those serving in the military. Thank you for Director Prince. We always appreciate your good works on the state level. And welcome to each and every one of you for being here. It's extremely important. So on behalf of Alderman Redpath, who is a military veteran, and myself, we appreciate you participating in this Day of Remembrance. And the reason I appreciate Gwen, talking about my father and Bobby Edwards, actually acknowledging how all our lives, our families' lives, were disrupted during World War II. Didn't matter if you were stateside or across the world. Ours were across the world. That's what brought my father here, was the German occupation of Vienna, Austria. And I'll just share a real quick story of what it meant to him. When he was elected mayor, they had a reception at the Wyndham Hotel. It's at the top of the Wyndham, and he's looking over the skyline. He goes, "I can't believe this. I came from a dictatorship. Now I'm the mayor of the capital city in the greatest country of the world." And that's what it meant to him. He was a World War II veteran. He thought it was important to serve his country in that fashion. And it's really important for all of us to remember Pearl Harbor, so the families of those impacted that gave the ultimate sacrifice know that their loved ones' lives did not die in vain, that we remember the importance of the freedoms they provide us to this day. And that's what's important to each and every one of us as we move forward. And it's important that we do live as one country. When my father, before he passed, one of the voices of concern he had is when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014. And it reminded him of his childhood when they invaded Austria. And he always said, you have to remember your history. And that's why it's important to remember this day, so America can take the lead in freedoms not only on the shores of America, but the shores throughout our world. And so as the World War II generation stood on the shoulders of others, we need to stand on the shoulders of the World War II generation that are far going too fast, so we can share it with the future generations, so we can thrive together. And that's how we assure not only America's freedoms, but of freedoms throughout the world, is that we all work together, protect freedoms, not only in America, but throughout the world. And we really appreciate you being here, those of the service, the veterans, but each and every person here showing the importance of remembering Pearl Harbor and what it meant to move our country in the best possible direction and the world in that direction as well. So thank you for being here and remembering Pearl Harbor.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my pleasure to introduce the Director of the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs, Terry Prince. Director Prince joined the department in April 2021 after serving as the superintendent of the Ohio Veterans Home, where he led a team of 850 employees caring for 801 veterans. His 31-year naval career included tours as Command Master Chief at Naval Hospital Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. He closed out his career in 2017 as the 14th Director of the U.S. Hospital Corps and Force Master Chief of Naval Medicine. As IDVA Director, Terry Prince leads a team of 1,200 professionals in partnership with numerous local and state organizations to provide beneficial services for more than 650,000 veterans and their families across the state of Illinois. Director Prince.
Thank you, Gwen. On that note, I'll start with, this is a somber occasion, but go Navy, beat Army. I think that's coming up this weekend. All kidding aside, Gwen's a retired soldier, as you've heard, and also recipient of the Bronze Star for her service during Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Pretty amazing. And this is her final year as our MC for this event. And you may not be aware of this, and she's not one to brag about it, but Gwen Diehl is responsible and been the point person on nearly $500 million worth of construction of veterans' homes and other projects. All told in her career at IDVA, well over $1 billion worth of construction on homes and projects to serve Illinois veterans. That in itself is an unbelievable achievement and one I'm so proud to be a part of. So thank you for that. Mayor, always great to see you. You know how much I love Springfield. I spend a week of a month of my life here and always come and see your fine city and go out to the Lincoln's burial to do some reflection on what we're doing in our state as we stay committed to veterans and their families across our state. And I'm not going to read all the names because I think you're going to do that already. But again, Sandy, I do want to mention you. You've been a real champion of mine since I started this job, and I really appreciate you and what the Elks do, both locally and nationally, for veterans across our country. So thank you for that. Thanks for having me here today to honor you and also our veterans and to talk about my thoughts about Pearl Harbor Day. As a sailor, and I'm fully decked out in sailor gear, socks, tie, all of it. It's drilled into your head early on. I didn't need a lot of education about Pearl Harbor Day because obviously we all know about it, but when you join the United States Navy, you get a bigger lesson about what Pearl Harbor means to the sailors and those who passed and those who survived and what happened to our country following that. In 2011, President Obama, a big fan of, said we salute veterans and survivors of Pearl Harbor because they inspire us. Despite overwhelming odds, they fought heroically, inspiring our nation and putting us on the path to victory. Bobby talked about the members of the greatest generation that overcame the Depression, crossed the ocean, stormed beaches to defeat fascism, and turned our adversaries into some of our closest allies. When the guns went silent, they did come home. They utilized the GI Bill and other amazing programs to build the strongest economy in the world, but reminded us of the challenge that there isn't a challenge too great when we stand as one. Many of you may be the sons and daughters of Pearl Harbor survivors, veterans in your own right, or a family member of a veteran. And you've already heard the stories. We all can tie service from Pearl Harbor and World War II into our own lives. You reflect that same determination. The fact that you're here today and committed to honoring those that we may have never met. But we know that they have a role in the reason that we're sitting here today. The commitment you've shown, the unspoiled work ethic, building your families, your community, and strengthening our nation. Those values that mirror some of the things that we learned during our country's darkest days. All of that's an important thing because at IDVA, we recognize there's no greater way to honor those who served than to serve the living. And what I say is by putting our veterans and their families at the center of everything we do, all of our efforts, we honor all of those who've gone before in service to our great nation. President George Washington said, the willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional to how they perceive the veterans of earlier wars were treated and appreciated by their nation. The bottom line is that IDVA, we don't just say thank you for your service, we show it through our actions every single day. I appreciate the sacrifice and everything that you've done as a son and daughter of a Pearl Harbor survivor, a veteran, or a family member. I pray that God blesses you, blesses your families, and our great nation. Go Navy, beat Army. God bless.
Thank you, Director. The World War II Veterans Memorial Committee has, for the past 20 years, focused on preserving the memory of the greatest generation. ensuring all of America's current generation and all generations to come never forget the sacrifices of our World War II veterans. At this time, I would like to welcome John Carrigan, the president of the Illinois World War II Veterans Memorial Committee. John?
Thank you, Gwen. Good morning. Thank you for helping us remember a very special yet tragic day. As today we remember the 81st anniversary of Pearl Harbor. As Gwen mentioned, my name is John Carrigan, and I am the president of the World War II Illinois Veterans Memorial Board of Directors. I'm also the son of a POW and the son of a United States Army veteran. Go Army.
Somebody had to start it.
We have a number of speakers today, so I will keep my remarks short. It wasn't 81 years ago, but I'm going to go back to a story that happened 21 years ago. 21 years ago in December of 2001, in fact, I stepped into the American Legion on South 5th Street in downtown Springfield. It's a grassy knoll now. It was there that I met a group of men and women. Well, they would affect the direction of my life for the next 21 years now. This group of proud Americans was known and is still known. They're still known as the greatest generation. John. Upon engaging with them in conversation, it became very, very clear that they had an unmistakable amount of determination. 21 years, I still have to pause. They had very, very strong wills. They were on a mission. One last mission, one last goal. They wanted to build a World War II memorial next to what was already erected, a Vietnam and a Korean memorial. Some might ask why it wasn't already erected. It's because they came home, rolled up their sleeves, and was inferred to earlier, they built the greatest industrial nation in the world and said nothing. One of them said, in fact, the reason we don't have one is because we never asked for one. This memorial would ensure that future generations would never forget. They would never forget the sacrifices of war, never forget the sacrifices of war and the tragedies of war. They wanted to be sure that the 987,000 young men and women that served during this conflict and the 22,000 that would pay the ultimate sacrifice from your state, great state of Illinois, they wanted to be sure they would be remembered. That they would be remembered for protecting our freedom, your freedom. Our freedom in these United States, and equally important, delivering that freedom across the globe. As was said, delivering that freedom to a suffering humanity. It was essentially the weekend of a date they had talked about for years. They wanted the dedication, they wanted it the weekend before Pearl Harbor. It was the 63rd anniversary of Pearl Harbor, and at this dedication, nearly 5,000 grateful citizens from Illinois and many other states gathered to help them celebrate their goal of realizing an Illinois World War II Veterans Memorial. And as was repeated over and over, no more perfect day, no more perfect date than the one that makes sure that Pearl Harbor is at the center and focus of it all. Over the years, the greatest generation continued to age. And many, many have passed, not one left on our board. Their request presented always with humility, their request, their humble request, their polite request. They said, please, please don't forget Pearl Harbor. Today, it is reported that the youngest survivor of Pearl Harbor is 97 years old. That population, that generation is quickly fading. Out of 16 million that served, there's 167,000 left. 99% are gone, with 1% remaining. But with your help, we're going to ensure that although the population of these young men and women, these brave soldiers, as that population, that generation fades, the memory of them will always be kept in our hearts and our minds, right here at the Elks Club, right out there at that memorial, be kept in our hearts and our minds, and that they, again, can only be done with remembrance ceremonies like this. Just like this and this one today. Before I close, I have to mention my good partner, Gwen. We worked together 20 years, at least. She's experienced tragedy. She's experienced joy outside of all this that you see. But she made a commitment to ensuring that she was going to be here steadfastly. And all the cold, it was a DAV, the cold DAV events that we had, and on and on and on. But Gwen has been a staple, an absolute foundation of ensuring that America never forgets. And I will miss you on your retirement, and I hope that I can get you out of your retirement to continue to MC. It was a beautiful job that she does with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. I would like for you to welcome Lynn Shindel. He is the son of a Pearl Harbor survivor and very active in the sons and daughters of Pearl Harbor survivors. Lynn?
Aloha. Aloha. How many World War II veterans do we have here today? How many Korean veterans do we have here today? Do you have anybody fought in Korea? How many Vietnam veterans do we have here today? My brothers and sisters. How many fought in Gulf Wars? Or in Afghanistan or Iraq? Thank you to all the veterans, my brothers and sisters. It's important today that we not only mourn the deaths and honor those lives lost at Pearl Harbor, U.S. Naval Base, but we also have an opportunity and appreciation for the scope of lives lost in battle over our nation's history. From then, the greatest generation went on to defeat evil during the Second World War. Those who served came home to rebuild what the United States had lost during the span of war, continue serving to protect our freedoms, and pay homage to those that were lost during it. And while we honor them with observances and tributes, it's also appropriate that we remember those among us here and throughout the country for whom the loss of each of these men and women is so personally felt. The Gold Star mothers and fathers and family members who lost a husband, a wife, a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, a daughter, or son. We should always remember the Gold Star families. Our nation owes a debt to the fallen heroes that we can never fully repay. It is our responsibility, our duty, and even our privilege to honor their sacrifice. We must honor them in our own lives by keeping them and their memories close to our hearts and allowing the character and selfishness to guide our own and sense of patriotism and duty to our own fellow Americans. As a nation, we must honor them by keeping the sacred trust with all the men and women who have served in uniform and are currently serving now, as well as their families, by never giving up the search for those who still haven't returned home, and by keeping the spirit of this day with us every day, all year round. I thank you. Aloha.
You've met many, but we have several more guests and dignitaries with us. If you would, please stand and be recognized. The sons and daughters of the Pearl Harbor survivors and their family members, would you please stand? Thank you all. I appreciate your continued support for our remembrance ceremony, and I appreciate your sacrifice. I met and knew some of your fathers, and it was a privilege. You didn't meet him, but John Philippi, our World War II veteran, is with us today, and John served in the Navy. Thank you for your service, John. John Carrigan has a wingman with the World War II Memorial Committee. John Getz, please stand. Thank you for your support on the committee. Bruce Hallam, past National Commandant of Navy Club. Thank you, Bruce. Bob Miguelich, VFW, past State Commander. Thank you for being with us. Gwen Goodrich, 21st District, Junior Vice, American Legion. Ricky Reed from the Taylorville Honor Guard. He serves as our chaplain. And he's my new husband. Mark Anderson, Navy Club and Illinois Squadron Commander. Phil Brown, Ship 32 Navy Club and National Navy Master at Arms. Freddie Roca, Service Officer, Chatham VFW. Joe Shaler, Military Order of Purple Heart, State Commander. I don't think she holds an office, but I want to introduce Rosemary Connolly, one of my female women veterans, who's wearing her Catholic War Veterans hat this time. Thank you all for being with us. I'd like to now take a moment to share the State of Illinois Proclamation. Director. Thank you. And that's for John Carrigan. John Carrigan, please come forward. proclamation reads, whereas on December 7th, 1941, Japanese bombers attacked unsuspecting American sailors and soldiers stationed at Pearl Harbor. And whereas during that attack, more than 2,000 Americans were killed, including 50 servicemen from Illinois, and another 1,000 were wounded during the bombardment, which outraged America as few other events in our nation's history has. Whereas in response, President Franklin Roosevelt and Congress promptly declared war against Japan and its allies, therefore entering World War II. And whereas United States sailors, soldiers, and airmen performed superbly on all fronts, together, the Grand Coalition of French, English, Russian, and American servicemen conducted mass campaigns and operations within the Pacific, African, and European theaters. And whereas on May 7th, 1945, Germany surrendered, which was soon followed by Japan's surrender on August 14th of that same year. And whereas during the war, more American sailors and soldiers were mobilized than at any other time in history. By war's end, more than 8 million Americans were serving in the Army alone. And whereas, thanks to the Grand Coalition, our servicemen and all those at home who contributed to the war effort, the world was made safer for liberty and freedom, the rights of all peoples everywhere. And whereas this year marks the 81st anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor and the 77th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. Although we can never repay all those who faithfully and honorably served during the war, we will always remember what they did and fought for. Therefore, I, J.B. Pritzker, Governor of the State of Illinois, do hereby proclaim December 7th, 2022 as Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day in Illinois, and order all persons or entities governed by the Illinois Flag Display Act to fly their flags at half-staff on such day, from sunrise until sunset, in memory of the heroes who died in the attack on Pearl Harbor, and in tribute to all the men and women whose sacrifices made the world safer for liberty and freedom. We would like to present the 2022 proclamation to Mr. John Carrigan. Once again, thank you for all that you do. December 7th, 1941 is a day that shaped the men and women we came here to remember today, a date which shall live in infamy. Please stand and uncover for the benediction. Chaplain Cimarossa.
Let's pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, God of our hearts, God of our realization, we give thanks, having paused to remember the brave heroes on this day, December 7th, 1941. May that event assist us today in raising our own courage with the examples of those brave Americans. As we move forward, may we be ever alert. May we have the strength of our faith to stand for this great guiding light that is the United States of America. We invoke your help, dear God, as we protect our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. This will be made possible with our hard work, sacrifice, and faith in you and in each other. May we always remember these words. We highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, and that by the Elks' promise to all veterans of all branches, as long as there are veterans, the benevolent and protective Order of Elks will never forget them. We now ask for courage and wisdom, for peace in our world, for your guidance throughout this day and every day. In thy holy name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Cimarossa. You may be seated. I would again like to thank the Springfield Elks Lodge for hosting us this year, and the World War II Committee for providing lunch following this ceremony. I'd also like to thank Springfield Mayor Jim Langfelder Department of Veterans Affairs Director Terry Prince, Lynn Shindel, our keynote speaker, the sons and daughters of the Pearl Harbor survivors, John Carrigan and John Getz from the Illinois World War II Committee, Bobby Edwards, Department of Illinois VFW Commander, and Elks Past Exalted Ruler, and Veterans Chairman. Sandy Bequé, our soloist, Michele Cimarossa, our chaplain, Frank Tyree, bosun's mate, Gail Kent and the Interveterans burial detail, Mark Thomas for playing taps, Don Ferrix and the Living History Detachment from the Illinois State Military Museum, Scott McDonald, the Elks bagpiper, and the staff at the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs for their assistance in putting this program together. Jenny, Bill, thank you very much. But especially my wingman, Crystal Womack, for your support and your assistance through the years. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our ceremony. On behalf of Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Director Terry Prince, thank you for being here to pay tribute to those who lost their lives during the attack on Pearl Harbor and to honor those who survived and went on to build our great nation. Thank you all for being here. God bless you all, and God bless America. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, this, yeah.
It was an education, one of the best. I've said now, I said it for, even after I came home on our very first leave, and still met some of the school kids that I left, that they didn't how can I say it? They didn't get any brains, they didn't get any smarts. Realize what life is really like when you get out amongst other people, different nationalities, different attitudes, different everything. And being have to do instructions and all, follow in the military, why, made a pretty good person out of you. It wasn't all bad. It was good. It was a good education, and geography and history. I was a gunner on a 20 millimeter machine gun. That was an education too, because when we first got it, you had to use your sights, and you had headphones on. The conning tower would tell you the distance of the plane that you were going to shoot at, direction it was going, and its speed. And within 5 years, they came out with a sight that they put on the barrel of the gun, and all you had to do was point at that plane, and that made all the difference in the world. It was a dead shot from then on. It was an education. You didn't realize. I think the greatest thing is so many different walks of life, where they came from, rich, poor. I remember the mayor of San Francisco. His son was there with us. It was. Your past history didn't mean nothing. You were being re-educated right then and there. That was good. Yeah, that was good.